Her voice cut through the marble-floored room like the crack of a whip. "Staff dine elsewhere," she said, not even sparing me a glance. Her words just loud enough to echo and hang heavy in the silence. I stood by the kitchen island, slicing strawberries, not for myself, but for them. My wife, her mother, and their carefully curated circle of guests lounged on designer chairs, draped in expensive fabrics and counterfeit charm. Not one of them knew the truth. They only knew the version she fed them, that I was a quiet husband who worked in finance, a man fortunate enough to orbit her glittering world. And I played that role perfectly. Maybe too perfectly. The moment finally arrived when the door opened and her business partner stepped in. His voice shattered the room's balance. "Why is the man who controls half of Manhattan standing in the kitchen?" The air froze. Slowly, I lifted my head, meeting their stunned expressions. I first met Evelyn 8 years ago, in the heat of summer. Her laughter sparkled like champagne being poured. She wore ambition as though it were part of her skin. I fell quickly, hard. My wealth was already vast, but discreet. She was the kind of woman who made you want to hand her the world just to see her smile. And I did. I introduced her to my world. Real estate, asset flipping, complex financial structures. She learned fast, absorbing every strategy. Zoning boards, debt restructuring, shell corporations. We married on a sunlit cliff in Amalfi. Her mother wept like it was a funeral. I should have listened even then. The first warning was small, barely a whisper. At a dinner party, someone remarked, "Evelyn's always been the visionary behind everything." I stood only feet away. She didn't correct them. The second warning was louder. During an investor call, she unveiled a new project. Prime property I had acquired, financed, and titled solely under my name. Yet she spoke as if it was all her doing. Last spring, I found the final betrayal. A rewritten prenup, buried under documents labeled as tax filings. Her mother's name was listed as an advisory trustee. Their signatures were notarized. Mine was absent. They weren't preparing for divorce. They were preparing to erase me. I didn't rage. I didn't even confront her. Instead, I stopped sleeping and started watching. Every morning, I cooked. Strawberries, toast, fresh coffee. Always in the kitchen. Always listening. She joked that I was becoming domesticated. Said I looked softer in the warm light. But I was studying. Her habits. Her passwords. Her routines. She kept one critical list. Bank accounts. Offshore transfers, secret LLCs, inside a leather-bound planner she thought I never touched. I memorized every page. 3 months later, I knew everything. They were planning to drain assets before filing, shifting funds to make it appear as though I was looting the empire. Her mother even had press releases prepared, painting me as the unstable husband, the liability. But I was already ahead. First, I created a mirror trust, identical in structure, impossible to trace, shielding every property under my name. Then, I quietly acquired her partner's share of the company, using offshore shell corporations disguised as a Middle Eastern investment group. He believed he was negotiating with foreign private equity. Finally, I waited for their move. The papers came on a Monday. Elegant envelope. Wax seal. Ruthless. By Friday, I hosted dinner at our penthouse. Her mother insisted on a private chef. I offered to cook instead. The table was set, my apron tied, my hands steady as I sliced strawberries once again. Then the partner, now unknowingly mine, arrived. He took in the scene, the food, the guests, me, and then, looking at Evelyn and her mother, he said it again. "Why is the man who controls half of Manhattan standing in the kitchen?" Evelyn's fork slipped from her hand. The sound was deafening. I spoke for the first time that evening. Calm, precise. I revealed the full scope. The trust transfers, the property reroutes, the business acquisitions, the block they intended to develop into luxury townhomes, fully mine. The firm she believed she commanded, mine entirely and legally. The narrative they had carefully prepared was obliterated in minutes. Her mother tried to interrupt. Without a word, I handed her the leather folder she once believed was safely hidden. She opened it, stared down at her own signature. The The truth stared back at her. Evelyn said nothing for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, laced with something between shock and reluctant respect. I miscalculated you. I simply nodded. She rose from her chair, picked up her wine glass, pausing before adding, "What is it you want?" "Nothing," I replied. "I've already taken everything." I didn't smear her name publicly. I didn't freeze her accounts or humiliate her in the press. I left her with the scraps, the empty brand, the glossy office space, her carefully curated social media empire. But the land, the wealth, the power, they were mine. Undeniably, irrevocably. Within weeks, she moved out. Her mother disappeared from the city entirely. Now, when I walk through that block, my block, I do so quietly without security or fanfare. Sometimes I sit in a cafe that replaced their old showroom. I drink coffee. I tip generously. Sometimes I catch a reflection across the street, watching the empire she tried to steal. She never enters. She doesn't need to, because she understands now. True betrayal doesn't need to shout. It moves in silk, drinks from crystal, and smiles as it hands you the blade. And revenge? Revenge arrives in silence, precise, patient, and served with strawberries.